Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So this is, I think this is the last class for this module, that is module 2. And initially when this module started, I talked about the issues of choices under uncertainty in economics. So basically we tried to understand certain alternative scenarios where the decision makers, the economic agents make decisions under uncertain environment, uncertain conditions. And we discussed about alternative scenarios and why such analysis is important and how our learning of AI techniques would be very, very important in understanding the problem of choice under uncertainty. Now we are talking about another decision making aspect, basically the process of choice being made in economics when the decision variable may be discrete in nature. I would come back to this particular aspect in a while, but before that, let me just ask you a couple of questions. How do we make, say for example, how do we make decisions as a consumer in a market? Suppose I am a consumer, I have a given amount of income, the prices are given to me. Let us assume that the taste and preference, it is given. So how do we make the choice in a market? Do you have any idea? I mean, how do we solve the problem of making choices in economics? And one such example may be, say I am visiting a market, and let us assume that there are some alternatives, and all these alternatives may be very, very important, but at the same time I have given level of income, and hence I need to make a choice. I need to prioritize. I need to prioritize the choice in terms of alternatives. So how do we make the choice? I mean, do you have any idea? I mean, some of you might have done some courses in economics. Any idea? Okay. Basically, what we do, Ritesh, are you there? Ritesh? Anyway, basically what we do in economics, we discuss about consumers' behavior in a market. And we assume that the objective of the consumer is to maximize utility subject to the budget constraint. And if income is, say for example, M, and there are two commodities, say X and Y, let us assume that price of X is Px and price of Y is Py. And if we assume that the consumer spends his entire income on these two goods, or whatever money the consumer is having on these two goods, X and Y, then basically the budget constraint is nothing but M is equal to PXX, that is total expenditure on commodity X, plus PYY, that is the total expenditure on commodity Y, and then the consumer has utility function where U is a function of X and Y, and the consumer tries to maximize utility subject to this budget constraint. So this is essentially a problem of constraint optimization where the consumer is having the budget line, and given this budget line, the consumer tries to attain the highest possible indifference curve, which is represented by this utility function U is equal to function of X and Y. Similarly, a producer have alternative options of applying technology. The producer may aim at producing a given level of output with minimum cost, or given cost, the producer may aim at producing maximum output. So there are alternative models in theory of production that we discuss in economics, where the objective may be to maximize output subject to the cost constraint, or minimize cost subject to the given level of output. So like that, there are alternative models in economics under different circumstances we discuss. Like as I said, I mean, utility maximization subject to the budget constraint, that basically we analyze that when we talk about decisions by consumers, purchase decisions by consumers, to be very specific, in markets. How do the consumers make decision in terms of what commodity to buy and how much to buy? Similarly, when I talk about output maximization subject to the cost constraint, or cost minimization subject to a given level of output, I basically talk about how do the producers make decisions in respect of how much of capital and labor to be applied in the production process. Now, in general, what happens? The equilibrium takes place where the given budget line, say for example, in case of consumers decision making process, the given budget line is tangent to the highest possible utility function or the indifference curve here. So the budget line is given when it is tangent to the highest possible indifference curve. We say that the consumer is in equilibrium, and accordingly it is decided how much of the two goods the consumer will buy. Now, when we talk about some such tangency solution, in general, what happens? The consumer buys both of the two commodities.
Professor Mishra,
yes?
can I? Sorry to interrupt. I can see only your first slide.
Yeah, I'm not shifting the slide. I'm not shifting the slide.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I'm basically talking about the difference between discrete choice versus the choice that we normally talk about in economics when there is a continuous variable, or the options are not mutually exclusive. Okay, so in case of say consumers decision making subject to the budget constraint, we basically talk about two goods, and in general the solution that we arrive at, we see that the consumer can buy both the commodities with certain combinations. Like I can just use the whiteboard here. think whiteboard is visible, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So basically, I am talking about a situation like, say there are two goods, X and Y, and here this is the budget line, and suppose this is the indifference curve to which this budget line is tangent. There are discussions in economics about the properties of this indifference curve, which is negatively sloped, convex to the origin, etc. I'm not getting into that detail. So this is basically representing the highest possible utility that the consumer can have given the budget line. And then this is the solution that normally we talk about in economics. This is for the consumer. Okay, and this is the budget line, this is the indifference curve. So here we are saying that in equilibrium, the consumer will buy this much amount of X and this much amount of Y. So throughout this budget line, if we see, whenever there is a tangency, the consumer will buy both the commodities. Of course, the proportion will differ depending on where the consumer is placed along the budget line. Now, only in these two extreme cases, say here or say here, the consumer will buy either of the two goods. If the consumer is here, the consumer will buy only X. If the consumer is here, the consumer will buy only Y. Other than these two extreme points, wherever the equilibrium takes place along this budget line, there would be a combination of X and Y that the consumer will buy by using his income. Similarly, in case of production, what we say, suppose the objective is to produce the output with minimum cost of production. And suppose this is the output, say Q, that the producer is interested to produce. Now what we are saying, the producer can produce this amount of output being here, that is at the point of tangency. The producer can produce the same amount of output being here also. But because the cost is minimum here, so obviously the producer will be here. These are the iso cost line. And what are there in the two axes? In horizontal axis, we are basically measuring labor, and in vertical axis, we are basically measuring capital. So we are saying that if the producer is here, then this much of labor and this much of capital will be employed in the production process. So here also what is happening, the producer is applying both labor and capital in the production process. So this is basically a situation of cost minimization subject to the given level of output. And here the production function is Q is equal to Q of LK. And here the utility function is U is equal to U of X and Y. Okay, so this is the utility function and this is production function. So in both the cases, we are seeing that the tangency solution basically is giving either a combination of the two goods that the consumers will buy, or the combination of two inputs, labor and capital, that the producer will employ in the production process. Having said that, again, here, as I said, I mean, there may be extremes. at the two intersection points where the consumer will buy either commodity X or commodity Y. Now, having said that, let us now get back to how the discrete choice models are different. Now, again here also, the decision makers, the economic agents are making decisions. They are maximizing the objective function, may be subject to certain constraints. But the difference is the choice that is being made by the economic agents is often based on mutually exclusive alternatives. Means choice of one excludes the others. Say for example, if there are three crops, crop X, crop Y and crop Z that a farmer can cultivate in a particular piece of land at a particular point of time. Now there are two alternatives. Either the farmer will distribute the given amount of land, the given piece of land across these three crops or across the two crops. Okay. Or the farmer can cultivate only one crop. Now, if the farmer decides that only one crop will be cultivated, say for example crop X, then obviously the possibility of cultivation of the other two crops, that is ruled out. So if the farmer decides that in entire piece of land only one crop would be cultivated, the possibility of cultivation of the other two crops, that is ruled out. So often what happens in discrete choice models, we basically talk about choice of alternatives that are mutually exclusive in nature, and obviously choice of one option, one alternative actually excludes the others in the process. But at the same time, the discrete choice models basically deals with random environment. And the discrete choice models may also be very, very situation specific. So a particular situation may shape the individual choice behavior. Like, say for example, in the previous year, price of potato was very high. And that may motivate me to allocate my entire piece of land to cultivate potato. Often some such behavior is observed in case of the farmers where decision to make crop choice this year may be influenced by previous year's prices. So for example, if price of potato was higher in last year, this may motivate me to cultivate only potato during the Rabi season this year. So I'll allocate my entire land in Rabi season toward cultivation of potato. On the other hand, if the climatic conditions were not very conducive, potato price was not very stable last year, then I may think of going for crop diversification, and the same piece of land now may be distributed among the three crops that I talked about, say X, Y, Z. So The discrete choice behavior may be situation specific also. And when I talk about environment, the environment basically depends on the socio-economic conditions while making the decisions, the attributes, and the circumstances of course. Now, in discrete choice case, because we are dealing with random objective functions in uncertain environment, we basically end up with probabilistic outcomes. So, the discrete choice models in general analyze random behavior of individuals in the decision making process. It's not that always the similar decisions will be made under alternative circumstances, even if the set of alternatives is the same. So, the discrete choice models are also discussed under specific situations. As I said, the farmer may have 3 crops as alternatives to cultivate. In certain situations, the farmer may go for cultivating only 1 crop, and in another situation, the farmer may go for cultivating all the 3 crops. Like the consumer's choice behavior that I talked about, under certain circumstances, the consumer may buy both commodity X and commodity Y, and again, there may be an alternative scenario where the consumer will buy either only X or Y. Now, when we are talking about mutually exclusive alternatives, this is very, very important in fact in economics. Let me just give you an example of certain alternatives. Suppose a firm is interested to enter into a market. Now, one of the possible route of entry into a market is basically the route of acquisition. A firm can buy the controlling stake of one of the existing firms, and in the process, this new firm can enter into the market. Or the firm can also go for greenfield investment, setting the production system, the production setup on its own. The firm can make investments, set the productions, make the production arrangements, and can enter into the market. What we basically talk about in respect of greenfield investment. The third possibility may be to have a joint venture. Now let us talk about the route of acquisition. Now, in various markets, I'll show you some data. In various markets, we see out of say few thousand firms, some firms are getting into mergers and acquisitions, some other firms not. And let us assume that we try to understand firm's decision on mergers and acquisitions. In many cases, if there are alternatives, in many cases people go for or may go for estimating even multinomial logit or probability. I'll get back to what is meant by that. So suppose a firm is trying to enter into a market. As I said, it can go through greenfield investment, it can go through mergers and through mode of acquisition, it can enter into a market through joint ventures. Some such alternatives are there. Which alternative to go for? An alternative scenario may be identifying the factors that influence the decisions of mergers and acquisitions. And when I say this, I'm basically talking about mergers and acquisitions. In this case, I'm basically talking about out of several alternatives. Greenfield investment versus joint venture versus mergers and acquisitions, like that. And when I'm talking about this one, identifying factors influencing decisions of mergers and acquisitions, I'm basically talking about mergers and acquisitions decisions are made and what are the driving forces. So out of say 100 firms or few hundred firms, some firms have been engaged in mergers and acquisitions, some firms have not been. So what are the driving forces? Now when I'm talking about with or in specific to mergers and acquisitions, there are two possibilities. I can understand this. Either I can see only the incidence of mergers and acquisitions, that whether a particular firm has been engaged in mergers and acquisitions at all. It doesn't matter in how many deals this particular firm has been associated with. So if it has been associated with mergers and acquisitions, the variable dependent variable here will take value 1 and 0 otherwise. When we are basically talking about the incidence, then mergers and acquisitions, this particular decision variable is a binary variable. And here basically what we do, we estimate binary logit or probit model. But an alternative scenario may be when we try to understand the extent of mergers and acquisitions. Now suppose out of 100 firms, 60 firms have been engaged in mergers and acquisitions, but the number of mergers and acquisitions these firms have been engaged with may differ. A particular firm may be engaged only in one deal, and there may be some other firms that have been engaged in a few deals. Now, in many cases, what happens? We simply count the number of deals and we define it as a count data model. And in many cases, what we do? We try to understand the size of the deals. That is the value of the deals. And there, the firms that are not engaged in any deal, for them it will be 0. And the firms that are engaged in mergers and acquisitions, for them there will be some value. So these are basically sensor regression models that we talk about in some such cases. If we are only talking about the number of deals, we are talking about the count data model. If we are talking about the value of the deals, we are talking about, say for example, Tobit model. Now I'll not discuss in detail about these econometric models, but definitely in this class I'll be talking about certain alternative scenarios. Here I talked about regression models for analyzing mergers and acquisitions. And the dependent variable is not continuous throughout. Rather, the dependent variable may be discrete. One possibility is, say I have three alternatives to enter into a market through the route of acquisitions, through greenfield investment, through joint ventures, right? Another possibility is I have decided that I'll go for mergers and acquisition, but at the same time some firms have not been. So we may analyze why some firms are preferring mergers and acquisitions and some others are not. So from firm's perspective, this decision is binary, either to get into a merger or acquisition or not. And when the firm gets into a merger or an acquisition, we can now think of understanding the size of the deal, or in how many mergers and acquisitions a particular firm has been engaged with. So when we are talking about how many deals a firm has been engaged with, then basically I get some discrete numbers. They are basically the decision variable, that is the dependent variable here. It takes some discrete numbers. And remember one more important aspect, say out of 100 firms, if some firms are not engaged with any deal, for them the value will be 0. Now, again, in terms of incidence versus extent, the second possibility is basically I can try to understand the size of the deal, means the value of the deal here. Because let us just think of a case, two firms, both may be engaged with mergers and acquisitions, but the size of the deal, the value of the deal may be less in one case as compared to other. If we are defining simply as a binary variable, then in both the cases it will take the value 1. So out of 100 firms, if 60 firms are engaged in any merger or acquisition, for all these 60 firms, the dependent variable will take the value 1. The decision variable will take the value 1. But again, the extent may vary across these 60 firms. And that we capture in extent of, say, M&As. So this is one specific example from economics. Another specific example from economics may be, I'll again get back to what examples I had shown you in my earlier classes, that is in module 1. If you can recall, I was talking about alternative technology strategies by the farms. Say, for example, a farm needs to improve its technology base. There are alternatives. The farm can develop the technology on its own through in-house R&D. The farm can buy the technology from others, right? The farm can get the technology by transferring some equity to the farm which is holding this technology. Again, there are alternatives. And here also, the choice that this particular farm makes may be mutually exclusive, particularly when the technologies are substitutes. They are perfect substitutes of each other, and obviously in that case, it would be mutually exclusive. But in some cases, this may not be entirely mutually exclusive. Say, for example, when there is a complementarity, like I want to carry out in-house R&D, and for that I need some foreign equipments to be purchased. So what is happening? Some part of technology I am buying from abroad. I'm importing some part of technology, and using that I'm developing some technology on my own. So here we are seeing some degree of complementarity between the two. There are analyses, many research papers in economics, basically to understand whether in-house R&D and technology purchase, they are mutually exclusive, means they are substitutes of each other. So there are studies where we have seen substitutability between the two. There are also studies where we have seen the complementarity between the two. Another example, like I want to say, for example, expand my business abroad. Again, I can have alternative routes. I can make investment there, produce there, and sell there. I can produce here and export. Another alternative may be a combination of the two. I can make investment in another country, produce the output there, and export from that country. So let us assume that I am in country A and I want to expand my market in country C. So what I can do? I can produce the output in country A and I can straight away export to country C. Second possibility, I can invest in country C, produce there and sell. Third possibility is I can invest in country B, produce the output there and export to country C from there. Now, in a particular situation, these decisions may be mutually exclusive. Again, in certain alternative scenarios, I may think of applying all the modes. This may happen particularly when the size of my business grows. I operate in multiple markets. I operate in multiple countries. And then somewhere I am making decisions in respect of option 1 or alternative 1. In some situation, I am making decision in respect of option 2, like that. So the understanding of discrete choice models in economics, it is largely situation specific. And as I said, I just gave the very first example, consumers' decision making process in market in respect of buying two goods X and Y. As we saw, I mean, when there is a tendency, we are seeing that the consumer will buy both the commodities, though the combination of the two in respect of their proportion, their share, it may vary. And when there is a corner solution, basically we are talking about either of the two point of intersection, then there basically the consumer is buying one of the two goods. But when we are talking about discrete choice models, we are basically referring to mutually exclusive alternatives. Okay. So 3 examples we talked about here. One is maybe the modes of entering into a market. A similar example is basically expansion of market. The other example is basically developing technology or sourcing technology, the alternative modes, like say crop choice decisions by the farmers. In all these cases, in a particular scenario, the economic agents may make decisions out of mutually exclusive alternatives. But at the same time, it is important to note that these decision-making processes may be very much situation specific. Again, at the same time, we may also see that we can understand in fact these decision making processes from multiple angles. Like here, one example that I talked about, incidence versus extent. Now let us get back to certain alternative situations in respect of discrete choice models. When the dependent variable is taking only two values, either 0 or 1, here the decision is binary. There are many situations where we cannot opt for more than one at a particular point of time. Say for example, at a particular point of time, with the given income, I can buy either X or Y. So suppose there are two goods X and Y. Price per unit of X is say for example 10 rupees and price per unit of Y is say for example 8 rupees. Let us assume that they are not divisible. And I have only 10 rupees with me, then I'll have to buy either X or Y. I cannot buy both. On the other hand, when I am having say 100 rupees, I can go for a combination of the two. Similarly, Say, for example, at a particular point of time, a student has got options of getting admitted in say 5 different colleges. And we know that the student cannot be admitted into all the 5 colleges. The student can be admitted only in one college. So if the student opts for college A, then other 4 available options are automatically excluded. Here what is happening, these options are actually strictly mutually exclusive. So in binary choice, there are only 2 options. There are multinomial choices, more than 2 options are available to the decision makers. In many cases, what the decision makers do, they basically see the dependent variable which is ordinal in nature. So here actually what happens, the alternatives are ranked. Again, there may be some situations where there is no observation for some part of the distribution, some part of the data set. It may result in a corner solution that I talked about. The situation may be something like top coding. Say the dependent variable is taking very high values for many observations. Or maybe some situation, say for example, certain experiment is going on. For some researchers, the experiment is over, but for some it is going on. So for those it is going on, for them there is no value because the experiment is yet to be over. So basically what we see observations for some part of the data set. And for the rest, there is no data or it is 0. And count data as I talked about. Basically, we see in many cases non-negative integer values of the dependent variable. Now, what happens in economics? There are theoretical discussions and also there are empirical discussions. There are very standard theories, models in economics with application of mathematics, advanced level mathematics even, to discuss about the discrete choice models. At the same time, in many cases, we discuss some such models empirically. And here, there are certain alternatives that we can discuss about. Like say when I talk about binary choice situation, then we may estimate linear probability model, logistic regression model, or probit model. In many statistical packages, we have all these options. In most of the statistical packages, in fact. More than 2 choices, we can think of estimating multinomial logic model, multinomial probit model. A related model in this case may be nested logic model. Again, I'm not going to discuss about the details about estimation process of these models. As I said, there are statistical packages. You can see those statistical packages and you can try for estimating some such models using a data set. Now, if we are talking about the dependent variable which is ordered, ranked, then we can think of estimating ordered logic model or ordered probing model. Then, as I said, there may be a situation of corner solution with some zeros, and then following that there may be a normal distribution after the zeros. We can think of estimating Tobit model. We may have a situation where we have unobserved variable beyond the limit. We can think of estimating truncated model. Like when the variable is having count data, we can think of estimating quasi-regression model or negative binomial regression model. What essentially I'm trying to say here is that empirically there are alternative models of understanding some such scenarios, of analyzing some such discrete choice decisions. We do that. Like, say, for example, the decision to buy a car. How income level influences the decision to buy a car. We can estimate a logic model here because either I decide to buy a car or I don't decide to buy a car. And whether it depends on my level of income. Now, the probability of buying a car, we know it is very less. At a very low level of income, the probability changes very marginally. Again, at a very high level of income, also it changes very marginally because by that time I have already a few cars. I think many of you have come across logistic regression models. But there are some models that I have mentioned here. One can think of estimating some such models when we try to understand the discrete choice decisions empirically. At the same time, Professor Mitra has already talked about estimation of discrete choice models using AI techniques. So you can be in a position to make a comparison between the two sets of alternatives, alternative techniques. But essentially here what I'm saying is that in economics often we make some such, we discuss about some such decision making models where the alternatives may be strictly mutually exclusive, where the alternatives may be mutually exclusive under certain circumstances, and third, where the alternatives may not be mutually exclusive at all. So it is contextual, and depending on context, you can hypothesize a particular relationship between the dependent variable and the independent variables, and accordingly you can think of which model to estimate. But in practice, what we do in many cases, we estimate a combination of models. Like, first, I may think of estimating a model whether a particular set of firms are engaged in M&A or not. And then this is basically understanding incidence of M&A as I talked about. Then the second exercise may be to understand the extent of M&A. That is, out of 100 firms, as I said, maybe 60 are involved in M&A. Then the size of the deals may vary across the firms. And there I will go for estimating, say for example, Tobit model. So when I'm trying to understand incidence, I may estimate logic model or profit model. And when I'm going for understanding the size of the deals, then I may go for estimating Tobit model. When the options are ranked, I will go for estimating order logic model. When I'm talking about more than two alternatives, I will go for estimating multinomial logic model or multinomial profit model. When simply I'm trying to analyze the number of deals, not exactly size of deals, number of deals. So, for basically it will take some non-negative integers. I'll basically go for estimating quasi-regression model or negative binomial models. So from this particular matrix, it is very clear that in case of discrete choice analysis, I can think of alternative scenarios, and accordingly I can think of empirically analyzing a particular scenario by estimating the respective model or the models. But in many cases, as I said, it may be a two stages exercise. First, you may try for understanding the incidence, and then in the next stage, you can try for analyzing the extent. But these discrete choice models are quite common in economics. And as you discussed today in the class, we started with the typical decision-making problems in economics, like decision-making problem by the consumers, by the producers. In case of consumers, it is basically a problem of utility maximization subject to the budget constraint. In case of producer, it is basically a problem of cost minimization subject to the given level of output, or output maximization subject to the cost. So these are some of the examples where we talk about the decision making by the economic agents. But these are very common examples, and as compared to these, there may be certain cases where basically we talk about discrete choice decisions by the economic agents, where the alternatives may be mutually exclusive, at least under certain circumstances. And we discussed about some examples like decision to enter into a market, decision to enter into M&A, decision to source technology from a particular option, crop choice decision by the farmers. So there are alternatives. There are many examples also in economics, like say cooking fuel, choice of cooking fuel by the households, say by the rural households. There may be alternatives, like choice of energy in lighting a house. There may be alternatives. So in some cases, we may see that the households, some households are going for a combination of various alternatives. Some households are going for one of the alternatives. Okay. So it is contextual. And accordingly, we need to decide which model to go for. And I will end this class with one example. I'll just quickly share this data set with you. Just I'll take a few seconds more. This is basically a data set on different variables. Okay, you can see market share, then market size, then say profitability, advertising expenditure, etc. And here, say for example, if I see the variable export, I can see many zeros here. Many zeros are there, you can see. So here I have a set of say 176 farms, and out of these 176 farms, there are many farms that don't export or that didn't export in that particular year. So here, if I want to understand what are the factors that influence farm's decision to export, again, here this decision is binary. Either the farm will export or it will not export. And I can create a variable like this. If the farm doesn't export at all, it will take a value 0, and if it exports at least to a certain extent, this variable will take value 1. And like that, we can have a combination of 0 and 1 across the farms, depending on whether the farm is exporting or not. So one model that I can estimate is a binary model, like binary logit or binary probit, where this variable will take 0 or 1. At the same time, this will basically explain the incidence of export by the farms. And if I want to analyze the extent of exports by the farms, so basically we can think of the variations in the extent of exports. So there is one variation, export versus no export. Another variation is within exports. So we can think of estimating or analyzing this particular behavior by the farms or particular decision by the farms in two ways. So here the decision is binary and it is exclusive, mutually exclusive. Either the farm will export or it will not export. But again, this decision to export or not to export, it may be very much situation specific, in the sense that this data set may be true in a particular year, and when I change the year, it may be in other way. So the farm that is not exporting today may be exporting tomorrow. But today itself, the decision is mutually exclusive. Either to export or not to export. So we can think of analyzing these cases in various ways, and empirically in many cases we estimate some such models, and these models are extremely useful, particularly in analyzing discrete choice decisions. Thank you so much. I'll stop here, and if you have any question you can ask me. I'll be very happy to answer. Any question? No question? Hello? If there is no question, we can then stop. So, Professor Mitra,